In Alberta, we have introduced the Compassionate Intervention Act, a life-saving piece of legislation to address those who are dying from the deadly disease of addiction. In Canada, as with Alberta, what we've been doing for the last 2 or 3 decades, it hasn't worked. I spoke to one Indigenous community that said they've gone to 400 funerals for overdose deaths in the last 3 years. A shelter provider here in the city of Edmonton told me they had one individual in December. This young man overdosed 30 out of 31 days in the month of December. Our highest flyer in the province of Alberta, a young woman from anonymized data, shows us that she overdosed from opioids 186 times last year. What we're doing isn't working. It's an affront to the dignity of those individuals who suffer, who deserve health care and not harm when the province comes to address the addiction crisis that they're facing. And communities deserve safe spaces for families to go and play, to a rec center, to end up working in the cities that they love so dearly. This province has taken a different approach. We know for those who suffer the most dramatic consequences of addiction, that it eventually, given enough time, will tragically lead to death. That 187th overdose for that young woman will not be reversed, but tragically end in the taking of a life from the deadly disease of addiction. That the 31st of December for that young man next year may be his last. We need to intervene. We need to intervene compassionately, which is why we've introduced the Compassionate Intervention legislation, leading Alberta and the country to a path forward to care for our communities and our loved ones when it comes to this deadly disease of addiction that's ravaging so many of our families. This is not a criminal justice piece of legislation. I am a minister of health, and my purpose is to bring health care to those who suffer from addiction. This is not for the vast majority of Albertans that suffer from addiction. This is for a narrow group of individuals. Like the tragic circumstances I mentioned, overdosing dozens of times in a month, sometimes multiple times a week for a year on end. This legislation makes it possible for someone to be given a treatment order for their addiction, addressing it as a healthcare response to prevent the loss of life of that individual and to restore safety to our families, the streets, and our communities. This process begins with an application made by a parent, a healthcare professional, a peace or police officer. These applications are reviewed and looked at for evidence of interactions with our healthcare system, within the legal system, their addiction history, determining if this individual could benefit through treatment through compassionate intervention. If someone is found to be eligible for compassionate intervention, they will be brought into the system through a compassionate intervention center where they'll undergo an assessment and start detox and stabilization. Within 72 hours, the individual will meet with a commission composed of a lawyer, a physician with an addiction specialization, and a member of the public, which could be an individual with lived experience or an Indigenous elder. It's this commission that would unanimously decide if the person could benefit from a long-term care plan, potentially including up to 3 months in secure treatment or 6 months in a community-based addiction treatment program. Compassionate intervention is for individuals where options have been tried and failed over and over again, where there is no option for voluntary treatment and no longer a viable option due to the seriousness of addiction, where they are a danger to themselves from overdose after overdose and potentially to the family and community. We as a government absolutely refuse to condemn individuals, Albertans, to a lifetime of addiction, of slow death on the streets in our communities, with no one there to intervene and tell them that the recovery is not only possible, but probable if they can only get the care that every single Albertan deserves. Recovery is fundamentally a message of hope, where lives can be changed, where families and individuals are given another chance, where someone can be a brother or mother, a father or a sister again, where these individuals can return to our communities again. We cannot leave our loved ones in the lifeless state of addiction, succumbing to methamphetamine and fentanyl overdoses dozens of times, again and again, injecting drugs on the street, inhaling with bypassers, getting secondhand crystal meth smoke. Some call this a lifestyle choice. Some say there's some right to 187 overdoses and killing yourself and damaging the fabric of our community and the tragedy of mourning that happens in a family. I don't think that's a right. I think that the compassionate and caring thing for us to do as a society is to care for those who suffer from addiction. There's nothing more un-Canadian than condemning those who suffer from addiction to death in -40 weather on our northern streets. Let's not sit back and let this happen to our loved ones. Instead, let's work together on recovery.